Welcome into the Trevor Staub Show, episode number 25. Today we have a great guest. We have Silas Schultz. Silas is an awesome content creator on Instagram for disc golf if you haven't seen him already. He's also touring a bit on the Disc Golf Pro Tour this year, so we're going to talk to him all things disc golf social media as well as about his playing career. Let's hop right into it. All right, we're welcoming on to the show now our special guest for this week. We have professional disc golf and social media guru Silas Schultz. Thank you so much for joining the show, Silas.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
Of course, yeah. So your story with disc golf, as far as like me, like knowing your name, like the first time I heard it was in 2018. But before we get to that, talk a little bit about how you first got your start in the sport.
So I started very, very young. I think I was 6 years old the first time I went out and played.
Okay.
My dad was into it for a while, and then he stopped playing. He went to do hurricane relief in New Orleans after Katrina, and then there wasn't really any courses. But whenever we came back to Baton Rouge, which is where I am from and currently live, he found some discs at a garage sale. And so then he brought out me and my older brother, Thunder, who's 4 years older than me. So he was 10, I was 6. And like we just love it. And it's kind of just been a part of my life ever since.
Yeah, definitely. Would you say you got hooked pretty quickly, or it took a little bit of time for you to like start enjoying it?
I'm just like I'm an athlete, like I'm athletic, and so like I just loved competing.
Yeah.
But like also I was a young kid. I have ADHD. Like when I was little, like I don't think I took a tournament serious probably until I was 11 or 12. Like I see
Okay.
some kids today who are like 10 years old at the World Championships, and they're like going through routines and stuff. Like that was not me. Like I was
Yeah.
playing juniors against my older brother. I moved up to like Amaret, but until I was probably 12 or 13 is when I like took it serious. But I mean, I always cared about, the game, and I always, loved playing.
Yeah, that makes sense. So in 2018, you got some notoriety for winning the Next Gen Tour National Championships, and a lot of that notoriety came from the fact that, A, it was like a new tour, but their big headline was that the winner was getting a new car, and that was like a huge deal. So you were handed the keys to a brand new Jeep Renegade after winning. How exciting of a moment was that to win a car playing disc golf?
I mean, that was like it was like unbelievable. Like, and I
Yeah.
genuinely didn't believe that it like even like could or would happen
Yeah.
until I like tapped in on 18.
Right.
So the year before that was my first time competing in that tournament. And that
Yeah.
was when I was 14. I hadn't played, like big tournaments at all at that point. But like I qualified, and I was like, I just want a shot, like to just see like like I don't know, there's no way I will win the car, but like I just want to like see where I would stack up. And it's an
Sure.
amateur tour, so like I just had no real gauge of like how good everyone was going to be or even how good I was. And so like my first round in 2017, like just played the Fallon, played great, shot 9 under, which is still like a very solid score out
Hmm.
there. Like I would be super pleased with a 9 under if I went and played Memorial next year. And it was really like a very eye-opening experience to like, I can actually hang with all these guys. And so then that year, I ended up tying for first and going into like a 6-hole playoff with 2 other guys, and then losing on the 18 when I threw out of bounds. And so like that was like, it really shook me to be like, oh, like I can actually do this. And
Yeah.
then even the next year though, like it's such a big thing. Like I don't even like, I'm 15. I have no concept of money or like how much
Right.
things cost. Like someone says this thing's worth 20 grand. Like I don't really have a gauge for how much that is.
Yeah.
And so like whenever it happened, it was just like, it was really, really mind blowing. And I think, like I ended up going on to sell it, and I just kind of lived off that money for a while. And like, it was really shocking. Like I just had no gauge of like how much that was.
Right. That was actually my next question. I was wondering if you still own the car. So you sold it. Did you sell it right away? Because I knew you were not actually able to drive when you won it. You were only 15.
Right.
So I didn't know, like, how long did you keep it for?
So after the event, we drove home. My dad flew back to Arizona and then drove it back here. And then we tried to like figure out what we were going to do with it. And pretty immediately we were like it just makes more sense to sell it.
Yeah.
So I ended up, putting it on Facebook Marketplace and like seeing if anyone, was interested in it. The thing was, it was a stick shift, and it was like the last stick
Oh.
shift that Jeep made, I think.
Yeah.
And so like it was a very hard vehicle to sell. So, but I'm paying insurance and things on
Yeah.
it while it's just sitting there. So we kind of got down to the wire, and we ended up selling it to CarMax. So that was the
Okay.
move. So it took a little while, but yeah, that's what ended up happening.
Man, leave it to the disc golf tour to buy like the base model stick shift
Right.
Jeep, man.
Right. I
Come
mean,
on.
Feldberg was like, like he was like, I need a car, and the year before it was a
Yeah.
Kia Soul. So we wanted to like
Right.
upgrade. And so like, I'm pretty sure with the dealership, he pulled all the like friends and family discounts and everything to try to get the highest he could with the budget he had. So like,
Yeah.
it made sense. But the really funny moment was when like the thinking was the winner drives it off of the green. Cause like, if you watch the
Yeah.
video, like I tap my putt and Feldberg comes whipping around onto the green of 18 in this brand new Jeep. And so like
Hmm.
they give me the keys. Like obviously I'm not going to drive it. I was terrified to drive it. Like I never
Yeah.
drove it. Like I was never
Yeah.
even attempted that. I thought I was going to mess it up. But then one of the guys in my car, I think his name was Harold, he like jumps in and he's going to drive it and he stalls it out right in front of everybody and they all
Oh.
just lose it. So like it was really great. But the stick shift made it a lot more difficult.
That makes sense. Did it so like they were giving it to you though, like no cost at all? Like did you have to pay a dime for it, or like they pretty much hand you the title and that was it?
I had to cover taxes, I think.
So you did have to pay taxes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. I was curious about that because I know even like they say when you like win cars on like game shows and stuff like that, it's really not that great because like there's game show tax involved and then like you have to
Right.
pay taxes on the vehicle. So that's one thing I was curious about. I guess it makes sense why they haven't really been giving away as many cars in disc golf
Right.
since those years.
Yeah.
So pivoting away from that and kind of towards your social media, it's one of the reasons I really wanted to have you on the show is because you're so good at disc golf social media and you've kind of created a presence, especially on Instagram. When did you kind of first find your passion for content creation?
Um, I'm a pretty creative person, and so that's like something I've always enjoyed is like creating. And
Hmm.
so I like kind of messed around with video editing, just like very basic stuff on iMovie, like I don't know, probably around the same time I was playing Junior Worlds and Next Gen. And so like never anything serious, never posted anything, just kind of got a feel for the app and kind of enjoyed it. And then
Hmm.
during 2020, Discmania kind of asked us to do like some disc reviews. And so I went out and I made like a couple pretty creative like disc reviews on like the Sky God and the Instinct and a couple things like that. And then also like I'm in quarantine, like I didn't really have anything to do. So
Hmm.
I ended up making disc reviews, and then making like some trick shot videos and just kind of getting a feel for the app, getting a feel for like what works on Instagram, what doesn't work, like lengths of videos, how to grab people's attention, all that sort of stuff. And then also during that time, I was editing like just full round footage from our local leagues because we
Yeah.
had this league called Game of Throws. And so one of the things about it was, cards, there was a feature card every week. And so I was tasked with, like editing all of that. So I got like a really good understanding of the software I was using and like what it was capable of doing. And then like, I made a couple videos here and there, and then I just started getting more and more creative with it.
Okay. Yeah. Awesome. So you do a lot of different types of videos. A lot of like very like you said like really creative concepts, some very original content, especially for the disc golf world. Where do you look to get that inspiration and the new ideas when making posts?
I mean, that's a good question. Like part of it, like it'll just hit me like an idea,
Hmm.
like, oh, this would be sick, and then other things, it's like I'm always trying to look at like other media outlets and like different sports edits and things like that and trying to figure out like, okay, how could I relate this to disc golf. So like one of the more creative ones that I do and that people really enjoy is where like I'll transition like into a clip, like I'll line
Hmm.
it up real close and I'll like become Eagle McMahon on like after making a
Yeah.
putt or something like that. And like that was something I had seen in other edits and I was just like,
Yeah.
this could be really cool. And so then it was just, one day I went out and I, did like Eagle and I was like, wow, that really worked. And then I did two more transitions for that one and then I posted it and it like blew up like crazy. And it's really like kind of the cheat code because one, like I think I've only seen like maybe 3 other people do it, and like maybe not to the same like level that I'm doing it. And then the
Right.
other thing is like if I make a like I made one for Germ on his old putt at Memorial.
Hmm.
And like he was so excited about it, that he was like
Yeah.
featured in this thing. And so like immediately he's gonna repost it, for a while Jomez was
Right.
reposting him, like, and so like if I make one for Paul and he reposts it, that's automatic views, like that's
Yeah. Oh
30K
yeah.
right there. So like
Yeah.
it's a super easy way of like kind of getting that attention to my page without like doing a lot of heavy lifting.
It's very true. Like you get the best of both worlds because you're kind of like getting to kind of like fairly use the other content
Right.
and like bring it into yours. I actually did it like a week and a half ago with the Nico Castro clip that came out. So I kind of did that same concept, and it always does very well.
Yeah.
But yeah, so you do, like I said, you do a lot of different types of videos. Obviously, you do stuff like that. You do the disc reviews. Which ones do you enjoy making the most?
That's a good question. I mean, I enjoy anything that really I feel like stretches me creatively,
Yeah.
And so like though like the transition videos, like I do enjoy them. I think they're really cool. They're pretty fun, but also like I kind of feel like, they've already seen this over and over again for me. I've made probably, I don't know, 5 to 10 of them at this point. So I feel like I
Hmm.
don't know like at what point is it like too much? Um, but I what I really enjoy is like I like filming other people. It's
Hmm.
hard when like people are like I'll make a video like while I was on tour I was making some videos for my friends and like dude you need to post this stuff for you and I was like well I can't throw and hold the camera at the same
Right.
time. You know what I mean? So like
Yeah.
I think that's like a whole creative challenge in and of itself is like trying to make like a something like a cool edit, of like a lot of different shots and music and things like that while having everything on a tripod, like
Hmm.
that in its of itself is like kind of difficult. But I think if
Very.
I had to like pick something that was my favorite, it would be like, if I got, like I've done some for Double G this year of like, okay, I'm gonna walk with you for a couple of holes and I'll get the shots that I want, and then I can work with it afterwards. So I think that would be kind of one of my favorites for sure.
Yeah, that makes sense. You're definitely limited a lot whenever your shot is always going to be stagnant,
Right,
and there's only so much you can do with editing to like give them life. So
right.
that makes a lot of sense to me. Um, so now that you've kind of gotten a good grasp on just making these like creative social posts, what are like some tips and tricks that you would give to others that are looking to enhance the quality? Just kind of like quick tips
Right.
of their own disc golf content. Like just want to give it a little more flair.
Right. Well, I can't like give away all my secrets,
Not all your trade
But
secrets, just
I'll
like
give
half
you
of them.
yeah, I'll give you some of my I'll give you some of my tips. I think starting out when I was first starting to like make content, like I said before, like I have ADHD, I have a pretty short attention span, and I know kind of everyone on social media does as well. Like if you're gonna grab someone's attention, you got to do it pretty immediately, And
Yeah.
so I would say one tip, like if I think like just videos of people throwing, like I think that stuff's great, Like if you're just gonna
Hmm.
post a quick, clip of a shot or something like that, I think people really enjoy that. But stop posting yourself lining up the shot. I don't I don't want to
Yeah.
see you line
Yeah.
it up. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Like a lot of my stuff, like I'm already, like stepping into my run up because that's the juicy part.
Yeah.
Give me the meat of it. So I would say that's
Hmm.
one of my first tips. Other tips, I mean, I think you just have to be original and be creative and like,
Hmm.
I think a lot of it is just like grinding and figuring out what you like, what looks good, and then kind of finding your pocket as well. Um, but I would say Instagram has really good filters. This is something I don't feel like a lot of people do, but like, oh, wait, here's a good tip. Here's a good tip. So like
Oh, here we
if
go.
you this is something I do all the time, and I don't feel like other people do it, but it's like so good. So like if I'll make an edit right of just like we'll just say like a backhand shot, like
Hmm.
just a cool looking backhand shot. Um, what I can do is like I'll play with the sound design. I'll make sure everything, the framing looks good, and like the color grading is solid. But like I'll just put it into an Instagram story, and then you can like pick the filters, and then I'll slide
Yeah.
through and I'll pick whichever filter looks really good, and then you just save that video, and then you can post it later, and like
Hmm.
you get like some pretty great filters that Instagram has. So I think
Yeah.
I'll do that. And if your video is longer than 15 seconds, you can do the same thing. Just make it as a reel. So start it as a reel, click
Yep.
the filter, save. I think that's like something that not a lot of people take advantage of. It's like they got solid filters and you can just like use them.
It's true. There is a lot of tools like within the native apps these days that like didn't exist before. It used to be like, okay, black and white or like slow mo, but now
Right.
there's so many things you can do to where you can practically edit within the apps. But those are definitely helpful tips. So I think it's interesting when you look at disc golf social media amongst players, you're kind of a bright spot because a lot of players have fallen into this habit of using like these template style posts where like they get cool graphics made for them, but they don't really stop the scroll like you were mentioning. They don't really
Right.
grab your attention because they're so saturated now that like the posts lack originality. You know, it's kind of just like tournament recap post after tournament recap post. Like
Right.
that's just kind of how it is. What kind of social posts are you looking for from like pro players, and what are the ones that you think would do better and like people would enjoy more?
Well, I mean, I totally get what you're saying of like I felt like when I went on tour earlier this year, like I felt like all of my posts were just tournament recap posts. You know, it's like
Mm-hmm.
or it's like, Waco starts tomorrow. Waco happened, on to the next one. And that was like my whole feed. And they're like, I think it's super easy, yeah, to just like fall into that cycle. But I think
Yeah.
if and I also want to say like I think it's an interesting spot where the sport is where like you have to be an athlete but also be like a content creator and like a
Mm-hmm.
personality, which like if you're getting drafted into the NBA, like no one's asking you to like make Instagram content so that you can like get Nike to sponsor you. Like that's not really like how it works. But I think that's like an interesting spot where the sport is at where like if you're say, Ezra Aderhold, who's done it, pretty well, of like
Yeah.
you have to be like a YouTuber and a disc golfer, which I think on the road that's really hard. But I would say
Yeah.
what people really want to see from these guys is um, like a look into what it's like, and like hanging out
Yes.
with their friends. Like I think someone who's done this really,
Yes.
really well is Alden Harris. He
Yes.
doesn't
Yes.
want me
Yes.
to. I don't. He wants his YouTube to be low key, but it's blown up. He's got
It's
like
not going to be low key for long. It's
no,
good.
like he's getting like a
Yeah.
lot of views, a lot of subscribers,
Yeah.
and it's because like his stuff is really entertaining and like we want to
Yes.
see the goofy side of Gannon. Like on
Mm-hmm.
Jomez, he looks
Right.
like this stoic kid who's like all locked
Yeah.
in. But like if you and some people will think like, oh, Gannon's kind of like this uppity guy who's like prideful or whatever. But like that's really not who he is. Like and you can
Yeah.
really see like the different personalities of like Alden and Gavin and Isaac and Gannon on like these vlogs, where it's like a
Mm-hmm.
different side that you wouldn't really be able to see. And so like I think that's stuff that people are just eating up is like a different side of the tour, if that makes sense.
I I couldn't agree more with that. My whole thing is if you're like, okay, let's just pick a player for no reason. Kevin Jones. If Kevin Jones posts just a tournament graphic, getting ready for this tournament, this happened to this tournament, whatever, that's not really going to get my attention unless something happened that I want to see what he
Right.
said about it. But all he has to do is snap a picture of him with his friends at Waffle House at
Right.
midnight, and that automatically is a better
Right.
post because I'm seeing something that I don't normally get to see.
Right.
And that's what I feel like we miss a lot of is like it doesn't even have to be the YouTube like hard effort kind of stuff.
Right.
Just like, hey, this is what I'm up to. Like that's what social media really I think what people want to see
Yeah.
out of the pro players. So moving away from social media a little bit into your playing career, because a lot of people don't realize, you're 10-10 rated. You've flirted around with the tour a little bit, kind of had like a semi-touring player, actually about to leave for another spurt on tour. So having some spurts on tour, but also finding success in social media, what's kind of been your mindset and strategy when making the next move in your career as far as what path to take?
I mean that is definitely something that I'm like thinking about right now.
Yeah.
Because I like honestly like Instagram and like my edits, like it was something that I did for fun and then something that I did to kind of try to get like some traction and like get some sponsors involved. And like really a lot of the sponsors, like besides like Discmania has had my back for a long time, but like some of these
Yeah.
new sponsors are like really excited to collaborate because of like my Instagram stuff, and like
Yeah.
that side that I bring to the table. And so like I definitely understand that like that's something that I have to push, because like
Hmm.
that's what's gonna help make me money. And then also, like last year I only played one pro tour event and like it went way better than I expected. And then this year, I played a bunch and I, went way worse than I expected. And so like I think that's going to be something to think about at the end of the year of like, like how much touring I'm interested in doing and how much touring that my sponsors will, help me do because like I can't really pay for an entire tour by myself, you know what I mean?
Sure, sure.
Um,
Yeah.
and so I think a lot of that is going to kind of depend on this next stretch that I'm about to go on. So like if I have some good finishes, a couple of, really solid rounds, then I think um, then I'll lean towards that, more. But
Okay.
yeah, we'll see. It's kind of up in the air at this point.
So is it kind of, do you feel like the competitive side in you that drives you towards like more wanting to be a player, the social thing you enjoy, but like ultimately, if you were given the choice of like, hey, I could do content for a living or I could play professional disc golf, you would want to be the competitive disc golfer.
Right. Yeah, no, I mean I'm an athlete, like I love to compete. Like that's
Yeah.
definitely something that drives me, but also like there is an appeal to like it doesn't matter how I play. Like obviously like
Yeah.
if
Oh,
if
yeah.
I can just like, if I make money off of videos, like I don't have to like putt well, to make money,
That's
And so
right.
like that's
That's
like
great.
that's like a very like appealing
That's how
thing.
I've been
Yeah,
living.
you know what I'm saying? Like, if all I
Yeah.
have to do is push out a couple videos and then I get a bag without having to like, perform,
Yeah.
which like I love competing, and I think that I could
Hmm.
I could pick a side and do it, well, but yeah, it's an interesting balance that I'm currently, trying to figure out.
Yeah, it's interesting because I've talked to a few people that have found themselves in similar shoes to yours, not completely with like the social media side, but Double G is one, and then David Wiggins Jr. is another, who both of them got to a point right about where you are in your career where they're kind of deciding, okay, do I do college? Do I commit to the tour? Whatever. But back then, the sport was nothing like it is now, to where they left and then decided to come back when the tour got stronger.
Right.
But it's obviously 10 times harder for you because the tour is so established
Right.
now, and playing on tour has a much higher appeal than it ever
Yeah.
has. So I imagine that makes things a lot more
Yeah.
difficult.
Yeah, it's tricky, but I think earlier this year, like I had just one of the worst starts of a year that I've had. Like last year, I played, probably around 20 tournaments. I only missed cash at one, and that was Music City, where I like missed by 2 strokes or whatever. And then this year, I started
Hmm.
off by like missing cash at like 3 C tiers, and then like hit the road. And like the Texas was just so windy that like I was just straight up not prepared. And so I
Yeah.
think that like kind of getting put into that pressure cooker kind of like caused a bunch of other problems in my game, but I've come home and like actually been doing well and kind of found my stride. And so hopefully, um, yeah, like I'll get to actually play to some of my potential in this upcoming event. And then I'll just be like, yeah, I'm on the road all next year and I'll,
Yeah.
make edits and all that stuff.
Yeah, it'll be an easy decision. The play will do it
Right.
for you. So I want to talk a little about Discmania because you're obviously on Team Discmania. You've been a good ambassador for them for a few years now. But being sponsored by Discmania over these last few years has been kind of an interesting roller coaster ride, and I like to get people's kind of thoughts on it who play for Discmania. So, what were your initial thoughts when you learned that the original molds, as we knew them, were being discontinued? Like the moment happens, you learn it. Is the worst day of your life?
Um, was it the worst day of my life? I don't think it was the worst day of my life, but I
Okay.
do remember the day. It was
Yeah.
almost a year ago,
Hmm.
um, to like probably within a couple of weeks of today, because I remember I was at the Mega Bowl in Alabama, and I had just played the most miserable rainy round of my
Mm.
entire life. Like it was like the
Oh
day was
man.
a bad day, and it really wasn't totally because of the news. Like I found out like, yo, we're losing them, and I was like, dude, that's so tough, and like my first thought, like whenever UC made the video and he's talking about, like how it's going to be in house, like
Yeah.
I don't really like, I was like, I don't have a problem with it if the plastic's good. But,
Right.
like, I'm going to be
That was
kind
a
of like, I got to
yeah.
see it. I got to feel it,
Yeah.
I got to throw it before I can really like endorse it or be excited about it.
Yeah. Definitely. Yeah, it was a quite a shakeup, but now that the transition has kind of been going on for a while, has it been difficult like transitioning your bag over to the new molds and letting go of certain discs that probably have a special place in your heart?
I would say as a whole, I would say no. It's
Okay.
been a pretty smooth transition. The hardest thing was, last year was going through some putting struggles, and then this was kind of, I think, dear, or maybe it was the year before last. Like this was before we started making our own P2s, and they just
Hmm.
didn't have any. And so I'm
Oh
putting
yeah.
with P2s, and I was like, hey, I need to get 10 more to get more reps in, and they're like, we can't do that. And I was
Yeah.
like, okay, well, send me 10 links. So I switched to links, and I, hashtag links for life and all of this stuff, which was like people are like, yeah, yeah, we thought links for life because now I'm putting with P2s again. Um, and I was just like, I had to have confidence in my putter. So like I'm
Yeah.
saying links for life, but honestly,
That's the
like,
moves. Yeah.
right, it was like it's an interesting putter, and it's the flight characteristics are not really the same as a P2. And so it kind of like I probably had one good putting tournament with links, and it was probably I putted with them for a couple months. And so like
Yeah.
I took a break, I switched back to the new P2s,
Hmm.
which I enjoyed for a while, but they're just a little too stable and a
Okay.
little too deep. And so I kind of actually, the Instagram community and just social media community as a whole came in very clutch, because I just like sent out like a message to the world like, hey, I'm looking for old beat up D line or P line P2s. Like just I'll take
Man.
any. And so like people are just like sending me these P2s, and it's like it was really such a blessing, because like I
Yeah.
look over here, I have like a stack of maybe 15, 20 of them, and like only a couple of pairs, but like for reps, like it was so
Yeah.
good. And so like they came in very clutch in that aspect. And so I would say that's kind of been the hardest thing, is like not having those ones. But I have felt the new Rainmakers, and they do
That's what I was
feel
about
pretty
to
good.
ask.
Like
Yeah.
I'm like I have enough right now to where like I don't really feel like I'll be switching very soon. But I think I definitely could if I had to.
Yeah.
And so, but everything else, like um, I was sponsored by Mania since 2018, so like I have a lot of backups and things like that.
Yeah.
But I've been really impressed with like all of the new molds. Like
Hmm.
the MD3s are like just they feel exactly the same to me. Like, and they fly. I mean, exactly of everything I could have ever wanted in those.
Yeah.
The new FD3s, I've only thrown them for, I would say, a couple of fieldwork sessions, but like I'm really enjoying those. The new DD3s I've really enjoyed, and then the FDs, the new FDs, I like so much more than the old FDs. Like,
Oh yeah.
yeah, like for me, because like I didn't throw FDs for a while just because like I had too much torque and I didn't know how to control it, and so like an
Yeah.
FD just like didn't work, because it's a really good disc, but it does require some finesse at
Yeah.
higher speeds of throw. And
Most
so like
definitely.
but these new ones are like beefy,
Yeah, they're
like
kind of stable.
yeah, like, and the green ones especially, all the green ones I got are like actually like have really good finish. And so like they go so far, like they have so much glide. And so that's a disc that I've really like actually think is like for me superior to the other molds. No disrespect to
Yeah.
the old Jackals, like they're so good, but like for
Yeah.
me personally, like the torque resistance on these things are just so good.
Well, speaking of torque resistance, have you thrown the Sky Gods, the new ones?
Yes,
Yeah,
yes.
those
I
things are
just
awesome.
Bro, I threw those yesterday. I went out and I love bagging. I bagged the Sensei, which is like kind of an
Yeah.
unorthodox mold.
Yeah.
Um, I actually, but I don't bag just like a stock Sensei. It was like the first
Okay.
time they came out, they had this pink run, which I've only seen the pink color, but they sent like my whole family. There's four of us who are sponsored, so they sent all of us two. No one
Okay.
liked them except for me, so I have a nice little stash. Although I'm kind of running very low at this point, but it was this run that's like domey. It has this weird outcropping in the rim that's like
Yeah.
kind of strange, and they have bubbles in them. And so
Oh.
they fly really great though. Like they got good speed. It's almost like a driver, if a driver was a putter. Like it's got good speed, good stability, and I've just grown very comfortable with the Sensei. So I lost my go-to just doing something stupid. I threw a Simon line and it went to some
Oh
thorns and it's
man.
gone now. But I have a backup, and so that's what I'm rolling with. But yesterday I went out and threw the Sky Gods just to see like how they compare. And
Yeah.
bro, they
They're
are like
stable.
wild. Like trying to get them to go like in a straight line at like
Oh, it's
200 feet. I'm like
impossible.
throwing them with like so much flex, and they're like
Yeah.
coming back. So they're bizarre. And honestly, like I love a really overstable throwing putter. Like I've been bagging
Yeah.
Sky Gods for a long time. Like I
Yeah.
love that like Anheuser toss. So I think they will make the bag at some point whenever I lose my senseis. But they're very beefy.
Yeah, I was looking for that putter for so long that I didn't even think it existed, that like I could give so much angle and have it fight.
Yeah.
And I got a nice red Sky God. I was super excited about it. It was everything I ever dreamed of, and I threw it in a river.
Oh
And it's
no.
yeah.
No.
So that's where I'm at right now. I'm going to get a replacement. But yeah, it's interesting you mentioned the Sensei, because I saw in your in the bag that you were carrying it, and it immediately piqued my interest, because I was like, hey, the Sensei, like those are easy to get. Like usually you see a Discmania in the bag, and like at least in
Right.
old days, if it was cool, you can't get it. Like it's
Yeah.
gone, forget about it. But I saw you had a Sensei, and I was like, hey, I know where those are. Like we have Senseis, that's cool.
Right.
But it's interesting you mentioned that it's like a specific run. What type of shots are you throwing with those? Is it kind of understable, or do they kind of go straight?
I'm throwing every approach. Like
Oh,
at
wow.
some point in Texas, I decided like I would try to throw other approaches, and like obviously like if it's an understable hyzer flip, the Sensei for me it's an overstable throwing putter. So
Oh, wow.
um like this run it's like so domey and glidey, and like I have two tactics in my bag. You know, I have a Razor Claw 2, which is very
Hmm.
overstable, and then I have a baseline one for forehands, and then I also have like an old Sky God that goes straight, and then a beat up D line that'll P2 that'll flip up. But the Sensei is just like a very comfortable like flat to anhyzer release, and it's just going to go straight and give you some finish. And so
Yeah.
like at some point I just decided like this is my most comfortable throwing putter, and I will throw it as much as I possibly can. And like I've torn up some birdie fest courses with that disc. I've just like you know, it's pretty
Yeah.
versatile on hyzers and anhyzers, and so it's just a really, you know, you find a disc that kind of fits your throw and like your
Sure.
game and your style, and like that's really what it's been for me. And it's yeah, if any, I just want to also make another call to action. If any of you guys have the bubble senseis, please send them to me, please. But if you're not interested in the bubble senseis, I have some signature ones that you guys can also purchase at teamfigance.com. So there's also that. There we
Nice.
go. We got a plug in there.
Yeah. So, talking about the Sensei, so that's obviously one of the kind of, they made like the filler lines during the transition period. You had the active line and the evolution line, which a lot of people kind of overlooked because they were just kind of waiting for the new originals, you know, like, oh, it's not really the real Discmania, but there is some really good sneaky molds in there. Are there any other ones other than, you mentioned the Tactic and the Sensei, are there any other ones that people are overlooking that are like really solid discs?
Yeah, absolutely. I think the I bag a splice, which is
Yeah.
like it's a super good disc, and it seems like as we call it Tilt Junior. Like it's like some of them are like
Hmm.
really really beefy, and like I have overstable FD3s obviously, but this is like a different kind of disc,
Oh, yeah.
especially for spike hyzers, because that thing wants to get to the ground as fast as it can. So like in the way that FD3 would kind of slowly drift on that hyzer, this thing's trying to, it's just spiking a lot harder. So that's a really good disc. I bagged the Instinct for a really long time until the FDs kicked it out recently.
Mm.
But I also bagged the Mutant, which is it's
Yes.
like a super good approach disc, and very, very, very overstable. And then also stuff that I don't bag is like the Essence is a really good disc for especially for slower arm speeds and rollers. Like it's really good fairway. And then the Enigma is a really good understable distance driver. So I really enjoyed like pretty much almost like as the active line discs were coming out, like those were a lot of molds that, you know, I really thought were solid, even if they didn't like, you know, fit my game. But I think
Yeah.
they're really good for, you know, someone who loves Discmania and maybe has a slower arm speed and needs, you know, a flippy fairway. Like they got it.
Most definitely. So, one more question before we let you go. I like to do a little power ranking segment at the end of my
Okay.
show. So, we're going to get power rankings of your top 3 Discmania molds of all time. And you feel free to like give a specific like third run PD, like that's, we can
Okay.
get as specific as we want.
Okay. Okay. Dang. Okay. Top three in order, power ranked.
Yes,
Top
power
three.
ranked.
Okay. My favorite disc, favorite Discmania mold of all time. Um, my top, I'm gonna go with at number one, or maybe I save that for last. No,
Save it for last.
yeah, we'll
Yeah.
save it for last. We'll save
The
it for last.
suspense.
Okay, yeah, you're right. You're right. You're right. You're right. Okay, what would be like my third? Well, I guess. Hmm. Okay. This
Tough question.
this is a really tough question. I'm trying to think of discs that are like kind of original to Discmania, but like not a lot of
Yeah.
other companies like have, because like, you know, I could say, you know, like the DD3, which is like, oh my gosh, like my favorite distance driver, but also
It's a
like
destroyer.
it like
Yeah.
destroyers are great, you know, bosses are
Yeah.
great, you know, like all that stuff. So I'm gonna go with at number 3,
Okay.
power rankings all time. I'm gonna say, gosh, they're gonna hate me.
Just do it. Just
I'm
do
just
it.
gonna
That's
I'm
what we
gonna say
want.
the new FDs. The new FDs is what I'm putting as
All
number
right.
3.
All right.
For me, like that disc was a game changer. And I
The
don't
disc. I can
see.
hear the disc maniacs. They're getting crazy
They're
right
like,
now.
what? No way! I spent $80 on this jackal. And I was like, I'm sorry. But for me, that disc was a game changer, and
Yeah.
it's great for all arm speeds. Like I can literally throw that disc over 500 feet on like a hyzer flip, and it's gonna come back. Like it's just so good. Okay, so that's what I'm gonna do. Maybe I should just make this like completely satire and put Sensei at number
You
2.
could.
Can I put Sensei at number 2? No.
Yeah.
Oh, no. It's too specific of a run. I can't. Okay.
You can get as specific as you want.
Okay. Let's see.
If that is in your heart, the number 2,
I'm gonna
then
look at
it
my
is the
bag
number
real
2.
quick. Hold on.
Okay.
We're
Okay.
gonna bring shout out Squatch, one of my loving sponsors. At number 2, I'm gonna go with the Sky God. I'm gonna say Sky
Okay.
God. As a series, I'm gonna put that at
Yes.
number 2 because as far as like approach discs, I think that is very very top tier. This is the one, my straight one that I bagged. This is the old Sky God one. Fun
Ooh.
fun fact, dude. Okay,
Yeah.
I've been sponsored by Discmania for a long time, and I didn't know that the stuff that I was throwing was going to be worth and was worth so much money. Because like
Yeah.
I'm 15, 16, and I'm sponsored by a super hype company. Like they're sending me
Yeah.
Roaming Thunders. I'm throwing all of that. I'm throwing Cloud
Mm-hmm.
Breakers. I'm throwing Sky Gods. I'm throwing these like Crescent Falcons and stuff. And like I was just hyped. Like I thought this stuff was so cool.
Yeah.
And so because I can't even believe that like this happened, but like this is where we were at. Was I ordered like, yo, can y'all send me 7 Sky Gods? And they sent me all of these different runs. I have this like the second run Sky Gods with a Huck Lab stamp. It's like
Oh.
it's nasty. Do you want me to pull it out? Should I pull it out?
Yes,
Okay,
please.
hold on. And so I have like a couple of discs from that run. Check this thing.
So Discmania, like they hook it up when you ask for stuff.
Yeah, look at this thing. So
Oh,
this is literally
man.
just when they made the Star Sky Gods, they sent me this one, and it
That's
had
sick.
yeah. So and then I think they sent me this one, and so like I had some sweet ones, but they sent me a double foil stamped Sky God one that was like a beautiful dark blue with gold
Yeah.
wings on a silver stamp. And I was like, yo, this disc is dope. I'm bagging it, right? So I bagged this
Yeah.
thing, threw it in the water in like, okay, not just like a lake or something. Like I threw it into like a swamp, essentially. Like there were
Gators.
absolutely
Yeah.
alligators in this water. And so like
Yeah.
I don't think it'll ever come back. And then immediately I was like, yo, like I wonder what that disc was like valued at. And like I hadn't been throwing it for very long. I looked on Facebook and I was like, yo, I was throwing around a $200 bill for absolutely no reason. And it was gone. So that was actually when I made the switch to the Sensei because I was like, I have backups, but I really
Can't
don't
do that
want to use
again.
these. And then
Yeah.
if you're this is the run of Sensei. You can I don't know
There it
how
is.
well you guys can see this.
I think I remember seeing early ones that looked like that.
Yeah, it has this weird the inside of the rim has like this like weird something, and then it has bubbles. So
Dang.
yeah, that's what I do. Okay, so at number 2 I'm gonna put the Sensei and then or the Sky God, and then
Oh, I was like, oh man.
yeah, switch up. No, and then number 1 all time power rank Discmania disc. I actually don't bag it, but I'm gonna put it at number 1. I'm gonna say
Okay.
the MD3 as a mold, just as
Okay.
a whole, the MD3, because I think that is I think it's, in my opinion, like the best beaded mid range or beadless mid range on the market. Like that's my opinion.
So what are you bagging instead?
Okay.
What is so much better
Okay.
that you're not
So
throwing
this
it?
is my favorite disc in my bag. It's a prototype MD4.
Okay.
And it is seasoned to perfection. It's actually maybe getting a little bit flippy at this point, but I have too much sentimental value to not throw it. Also, it's invisible. Like if you throw this in the
Yeah, it
leaves,
looks tough.
you look for the stamp. You can't look
Yeah.
for the disc. So that's sad. I'm kind of waiting for the day this disc doesn't come home, and then I will bag. And I've bagged MD3s for a really, really long time. My other situation is the vapor method, and so that's
Okay,
my
throw in the
yep.
method.
Oh, I forgot to mention that. Yeah, the method is a really, really good overstable mid range from the Evolution line.
Yeah.
So I throw that, and then I have this, which is an MD2. No one bags an MD2.
Wow.
It's super
Yeah.
old. I actually had this at that first next gen where I lost. This was in the bag, and so
Oh, okay.
it's been in there a minute. It's very, very flippy. So that's my lineup for mid ranges. I would absolutely throw, like, I threw the MD3s before I was sponsored by
Yeah.
Discmania, and so I think the MD3 MD4 combo is really, really good, and I'm going to put that at number one.
All right. Well, there you have it. There's the power rankings of the Discmania. That is the official Discmania power rankings. There can be no dispute.
Yep.
And if you find any of those senseis, you can send them to Silas or me, and I can just hold them hostage over
No,
Silas. So,
please send them
because
to
I
me.
kind of want to try one out. So, but anyways, Silas, thanks so much for joining the show. It was great talking to you, and we wish you the best of luck with your next tour spurt.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for having me.
All right, and thanks once again to Silas for joining the show. It was awesome hearing from him about his perception of disc golf social media and just all the content that he's creating, get a little peek into his creative vision as well. We're definitely wishing him luck as he pursues touring disc golf, though. We hope we can see more of that great content even as he continues playing more disc golf. But make sure you're back here next Thursday. We're going to have another great guest. We'll see you then.